I've got these beautiful mushrooms today. It's officially mushroom season, and I think it's probably my favourite time of year for produce. Definitely a consolation on the approaching winter. And one of the most fabulous things that we get here are these wild Scottish girolles. We probably make this recipe once a year and it's incredibly special. I'm going to show you how to make it. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of What on Earth to Eat Now. To all our subscribers, if you haven't had a chance yet, please do click that subscribe button. It really helps us out and we can keep making these videos, and it's entirely free. So let's get on with the recipe. So we're going to be making a sauce with these mushrooms. We're going to have chestnuts and parsley, and we're going to put them with some quick noodles that we're going to make by hand. So I'm going to start off with the batter, which is incredibly simple. So I've got 280 grams of plain white flour, and into that I'm going to put 150 grams of grated raw waxy potato. So I'm just going to do that like so. I'm just going to mix that in a little bit. And then I've got 10 grams of finely chopped chives. I've got 100 ml of just unsweetened plant milk. And I'm just going to add that very slowly around the sides. Just slowly adding that bit by bit. Just into one side. And finally 130 grams of sparkling water. So you could have soda water, but you want those bubbles to keep it nice and light. I'm just going to gently mix this in, a little bit at a time. You'll need to give it a good bit of welly because we do want quite a stiff dough. But you're there when there are no bits of dry flour left. And then finally a sprinkle of salt. I'm going to let that rest while I make the sauce. It doesn't need more than about 10 minutes, but it's fine if you leave it in the fridge for a bit. And we're done. I'm going to pop that in the fridge and get on with the sauce. So the next part of this recipe, I'm going to take a good handful of these mushrooms. I've got 550 grams in total, so I'm looking for about 100 grams for the sauce. I want to leave plenty to put through the noodles at the end, and I've brushed them off any sort of excess soil or bits of foliage, and I'm just going to break them very gently with my fingers. It feels like such a privilege to be able to cook with these mushrooms. So I'm going to quickly fry those up just in a little bit of oil and salt, and we'll carry on with the recipe. Just going to transfer my mushrooms to a bowl. I'm going to fry some garlic. Now 2 cloves I've minced here. Mushrooms and garlic. And a good pinch of thyme. A pinch of salt. So I've got my crumbled chestnuts in there, and I'm just going to fry them just for another 30 seconds before I add in my mushrooms. So I've got my fried mushrooms and chestnuts, and I'm just going to chop them pretty finely. And I'm going to have a little taste. A little bit of pepper. And I'm going to fry up the rest of my mushrooms now with a generous sprinkle of roughly chopped parsley. Okay, my mushrooms are cooked. And I'm going to put my chopped mushrooms in. So. And a couple of handfuls of this lovely chopped parsley. I'll save a bit to sprinkle at the end. My sauce is made, so all that's left is to make my quick noodles, and I'll show you how to do it. So I've got a pan here with just salted boiling water, and I've got my dough, which is very sticky, sort of wet bread dough consistency, and I'm just going to spoon a third of it onto a chopping board like so. There's nothing technical about this, it's very forgiving, so do have a go. I'm going to dip my knife into the water, and I'm simply going to choose a sort of finger-sized amount, and I'm just going to flick it into the water like so. You're just going to flick them into the water. With the tip of your knife. You know they're ready when they float to the surface. About 2 minutes. Not an exercise in being a perfectionist. I'm just going to fish them out. These lovely uneven beauties. Give them a shake and put them into my pan. I've just got a little bit of olive oil heating there, just so they don't get stuck together. I've just heated my mushrooms up again with a little bit of hot water, the water I cooked my noodles in, and I'm going to just spoon a nice amount of sauce over these beautiful noodles. You can see where the chive in the batter is just shining through. That's very jolly. Just going to coat them like that. I'm going to put a sprinkle of pepper just to finish it, and some more chopped parsley. And voila, your girolles with noodles and chestnuts and loads of fresh parsley. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you again next week for another episode of What on Earth to Eat Now. I'm just going to have to tuck right in.